why there's no such thing as an atheist. Just as someone may say that there's no such thing as a president or prime minister surrounded in a society where the very signs of government are all around us. The policies and procedures in place, the traffic lights, the taxes, all of the institutions, the infrastructure. We can understand that a prime minister or president may just be the glove around the hand, the showpiece, the puppet. But there is presidents and prime ministers. There is politics, unfortunately. Many ticks, poly, multiple, and ticks, politics. In the same analogy, there is a teacher, there is a master, there is a God, there is a creator. The onion has many layers. For man to basically deny that there's no such thing as God is like an ancient projection or shadow on a wall to build its own intelligence and say that there's no source for this projection, for the very shadow to say that there's no being that is casting this shadow. What do atheists believe? If we go to the Middle East, or even Africa, or even India, where the very origins of man is fundamental. These locations are fundamental to religion. Most of the origins of religions come from these continents. Then was Adam the first man? In the ancient history of Sumer or Babylon, Adamu was the first man. As a Sikh or as an Indian person, we use the reference Adami, which means man. We would say, look across there, there's an Adami, there's a man. Within the very languages, if we break down the words, we can start seeing the origin of meanings. And the word Adami means to breathe. Dam is your breath. Is it preordained how many breaths in a man or a woman has? Did you know the word spirit means breath? And then we go on back to the very energy within the air that gives us breath. This is why in meditation we focus on our breathing. It always indicates that you're breathing light in. Well, this has been observed. Energy has been observed through the actual air. The prana has been observed through the air. There's been many cases of atheists who become religious, and most successful people in the world have a root, a strong root. They don't forget where they have come from. They don't forget their origin, whether it's the teachers, whether it's the parents, whether it's those very people and individuals that have fashioned their success. Hard work being one of the most important factors of success. Can a great student say that they have no teacher or master? If we look at Taoism, that whole idea behind a teacher, a guru, a master, that knowledge, what is that? Buddhism, Bud, we say, 3 references: Surt, Mat, Bud. Surt is how awake you are, Mat is how much knowledge you have, and Bud is your wisdom. So a Buddha, a Buddha, is an old man, a wise man. Is there any old atheists? Does an old man become Buddhist? In a way, yes. An old man becomes a Buddha, because his very experience of life has made him wise. Why wasn't he the same as a youngster, as a juvenile, as a teenager, as an adolescent? What's changed? I have a book published called Ballora, the Lost Book of Teaching. And there's a very interesting quote that I read when I was reading an interesting book before I became a writer. And in the first section of the book, it stated that if our brain is a few pounds of jelly, then 99% of everything is fiction. Can a child walk and talk when it's born? I personally believe that George Bush was a clone. There was 2 versions of Bush. One with grey hair, which was a little bit more smarter than the George Bush that wasn't able to construct a sentence. Because there's lots of elements of knowledge and connection. Not everybody has emotional intelligence, not everybody has empathy, not everybody has great psychology, not everybody has a higher consciousness. Can a child say that it has no parent? The word mat is knowledge, but it also pays resemblance to Mata, which is mother, and the earth, the Dharti, which the 5 elements. The water is the father, the mother is the earth, the fire is destruction, and the air is the life force, is God. So the very source of God is actually within the air. And the 5th element is magic, or space, or the ether, or the Akash. But all of these elements come together. So does an atheist believe that his source is the 5 elements? Because the fifth element is mysterious. The fifth element is not something that you can see with your eyes. In fact, the very fundamental things which make anything operate is vibration. Even electronics needs oscillation. My background is an electronics engineer. A heartbeat is a vibration. A 0 and a 1 in binary is a vibration. The very expansion of the cosmos and collapsing back in is a vibration. To us, it's happening very slowly. We see explosions as something fast, but you can slow that explosion down. Time and space has a relevance, but what is time? Does an atheist understand right and wrong? And if so, why? Because the very concept of God and good and bad is part of creation. We instinctively have God coded within ourselves. To see something that is wrong and to have that feeling that this is wrong, that is what makes us human. So to be human is very much to be a part of God. That is part of our being, isn't it? Why do we embrace? Why do we hug? Why is love the binding force in this universe? Do atheists love? If so, why? Because an argument of an atheist is, I've had a hard life, I've had a difficult time, I've had suffering, therefore there is no God. It's like a baby spitting his tummy out. In fact, there was a 63-year-old man who was a director of a large company, and I was once debating this with him for a very large contractor, electrical contractor, and he was a very successful person. But he said that if there's a God, it's the devil, because you see lots of children suffering in the world. That's a very shallow perspective, because too much of anything is bad. If us humans had everything we always wanted, would that mean that there's a God? If we could continue to eat without feeling sick and keep eating, without the very parameters that are in place, there'd be a shortage of food in the world, and people literally would not stop eating. If people always had things good, there'd be no balance. What is emotion? What is dreaming? Would an atheist help someone in danger? If so, why? If we look around, look at the road, look at the buildings, look at the cars, look at the furniture in a house, look at everything around you. It's man-made. It's come from imagination. Why did Einstein say imagination is more important than knowledge? Because a lot of today's knowledge is worldly knowledge. But creative knowledge and creative imagination is what's created the lifestyle that we have today. Everything that we have has come from imagination. Imagination is the construct of being, of what can be, what is, and what we can make, what something can become, which is like belief. Without knowing how we are going to make this as an inventor, I would often have thoughts as a young child of inventing things. And not all inventors know how to make their idea a possibility. They don't have the knowledge. The knowledge is something that comes with the experience. But that initial conception of the idea, that initial eureka moment is where the genius is the genesis of that very idea, to bring that creation, that thought, which was nothing, which was non-matter, into matter. And this is very much how the actual universe operates. The deeper scientists have gone into matter, it bears no resemblance to matter. It has more resemblance to mind. What is time and what is imagination? The speed of thought travels faster than the speed of light. The atheist is typically a middle-aged person after a midlife crisis, and they've decided to blame everything on God. It's God's fault. So therefore I don't believe in God. Well, that itself is inclining to believe that there is a God. You see, deep down inside, I understand that atheists do actually believe in something higher. So is an atheist blaming God? If you watch the movie The Lion King, doesn't Simba say that he has no father? Don't people often say, I have no parents, my parents are dead? But that doesn't change the fact that they had parents, that their parents existed. So by somebody saying that it's all God's fault, me being atheist is going to make it all correct, because I'm denying God. I'm denying the existence of God. Well, denying the existence of God doesn't make that intelligent creator disappear. It's still controlling the 5 elements: the air, the precise rotation of the earth, the precise magnetics, the precise forces, the very electrical activity that's happening in the brain, the very way that you can hear the sound, the very way that all of the fibers and muscles in your body operate and move to allow you to walk through this fish tank, through this space, the very way that your brain perceives light and dark and perceives time and understands things and remembers and thinks. You see, what an atheist has to understand is that the very fundamental construct of everything has God meshed into it, has the Creator encapsulated within it. You might see a signal on a computer, but if you look at the packets of that signal, they have lots of other information encapsulated, encoded within them, which allows the transmitter and receiver to make sense of the signal before that signal is interpreted and passed up through the different layers or levels. So how we decode reality is very significant to one's own development. Like I've indicated in my previous videos and lectures, some of the most brilliant minds in history and in the present today believe and have a concept that there's something higher than themselves. Not falling into a particular religion is okay, but to deny the very existence of God is foolish. See, I truly believe that an atheist, deep down inside, understands that there's something higher. he or she just doesn't think that it's a man in the clouds. Because even that man in the clouds is susceptible to suffering and failure. Even the gods, as I've indicated before. In chapter 4, which is about material and the metaphysical reality of material, my audiobook, Science and Religion, but even the gods were susceptible to ego. Isn't it ego itself to deny the existence of God, to say only I'm here? As I've indicated before, if I'm here, I can never find you. If I deny myself, then I find God immediately, which is very Indian, it's very Buddhist. It's also very Christian, that the fact that the creation is everywhere. I simply have to let go of the I, because I is an illusion. Your ego is not who you are. If you listen to Alan Watts, a brilliant mind, he's done numerous videos on what the ego is. But that ignorance of an atheist, that ego of an atheist, is the very reason why they cannot see what is in front of them. They wouldn't know Jesus if he was stood in front of them. They wouldn't know God or a master or a guru or a teacher if he was right beside them, because they simply ignore it. God speaks to us through other people, and I've witnessed this on many occasions. When somebody speaks your mind, when somebody says something that is permeating in your mind, even when you're in trouble, and somebody is there and appears like magic if you get stuck in the snow, if your car breaks down, and somebody automatically is there to help you, and everything is done and goes through seamlessly without any hassle or trouble, and you think, I thought I was going to be in trouble, but in the end I'm okay. That itself is the experience of God. Now, in the same understanding, even in theism and following a particular religion doesn't mean that somebody is going to decode reality to actually understand what God is, to understand that heaven and hell is all here, that everything itself is here. The Buddhists call it nirvana. In Indianism, we call it samadhi. In other religions, it's known as enlightenment, becoming spiritually enlightened or spiritually aware and seeing things from a different perspective. There's lots of people that go through the process of religion, but that doesn't mean that they understand what creation actually is. And in the ancient times, that understanding and that knowledge that we've lost now, which a lot of that knowledge is in this recording and my other recordings on the channel, if you look at the audiobook, but that knowledge itself has been lost. We've seen a lot of scientists today come across as atheists. For example, Brian Cox, a few other theoretical scientists and physicists. Well, the physicists don't have all of the answers, not even the particle physicists, the quantum physicists, because from singularity or even quantum fluctuations or the beginning of the Big Bang, I personally believe that there wasn't one. I personally believe that there was a God expansion, and it simply is a vibration. I accept string theory. I accept that we're in a holographic existence. I accept that this potentially could be a mathematical, computer simulated program. Even binary is a vibration, a 0 and a 1, simply two logical states. If we change them to an electrical fluctuation of voltage, it becomes a signal, it becomes a communication. Our heartbeat is a signal. The very firing patterns of our brain and the electrical activity of the brain is a vibration. Sound itself is a vibration. Om, as in the Hinduism, or Om God, as in Sikhism, or the Word, as in Christianity. So then why is it that scientists are trying to create black holes? Why is it that scientists are trying to find the God particle? Why do they call it the God particle? If everything is a vibration, then haven't all of these scriptures within Indianism already indicated that everything comes from vibration? And not a lot of people know about the dark science or the higher dimensional science or the black projects. Mainstream science is a baby compared to what the scientists within the black projects have discovered. Why isn't that mainstream? Why isn't acknowledging and disclosing the fact that we are living amongst 50 to 60 other species of intelligent life? Why isn't that declassified? Because that will have a very change in paradigm. Is it possible that people may believe in God if they come to acknowledge and understand that there's other forms of life out there on other planets? How will that change the whole idiocracy behind evolution? It will completely shatter Darwinianism, what Charles Darwin has put forward as evolution. And this has already been proven if we look at Michael Tellinger, the findings, the archaeological findings. If we look at the work of Graham Hancock, who has discovered all types of ruins, and the fact that our recent history, going back 200 to 300 years, has simply been a rewrite with an agenda of propaganda, ignorance, divide and rule. We can divide people with ignorance. Are some of these scientists and atheists part of this agenda? It's very possible. I admire the work of Stephen Hawking. I admire the fact that Stephen Hawking has brought to us the concept of 9 dimensions, multiple dimensions, and how that affects the very force of gravity, which is something that I believe in and agree. I actually believe that gravity itself is a force that is alive. It responds back. Gravity isn't fixed, but something that's very elastic, something that's moving. There's motion within gravity. And this may be something that scientists have already discovered, or are discovering, or are going to discover. But who is Stephen Hawking? He's a computer synthesized voice. Anybody could hijack that voice and say one of the greatest minds is telling us this. One of the greatest minds is telling us that God doesn't exist. One of the greatest minds is telling us that aliens are hostile. Do you think other forms of life haven't known about this planet? They've known about this planet for tens and tens of thousands of years, if not hundreds of thousands of years. We are within 10% of bipedal development compared to some forms of intelligence out there. Why would they have a great interest in us to harm us if they themselves have been instrumental in our technological, scientific, and even spiritual development? Certain races have brought us religion. other races have brought us technology. And the races that have brought us technology have given us the technology because they have destroyed their own planet with that technology or with the wars. Why did Oppenheimer quote that nuclear power is the power of gods? If the Big Bang was a nuclear explosion, why so much diversity in life? Why so much perfection? If we look at a single tree, if we look at a single blade of grass, if we look at a single atom, if we look at a single leaf on a tree, it's perfection. If we explode an atomic bomb or a nuclear bomb, what comes of that? Perfection or destruction? Simply, destruction comes from that. Nothing survives that. That causes death. So was it a random explosion? Of course not. Science, in fact, has, if we look at some references within Jewish people and the Torah, which a lot of it is fairly scientific, a lot of scholars and professors and scientists will conclude that science has already grasped and acknowledged that they found God simply by looking at how creation works and the universe operates as a living being in high dimensional physics and science. It has been acknowledged that the universe itself is a living entity, that we're in a fish tank, that even space itself is something, but around that there's nothing, which we can't basically comprehend what that nothing is, because everything that we think of is something. Even when we try to detach from our thoughts in meditation, to release those thoughts, to basically receive cosmic energy, we are still thinking about something. So in my opinion, the greatest minds on the planet, the greatest scientists, are not simply scientists, but they are themselves in theism, and they are theos. Ancient priests used to be scientists. Astrologers were scientists, but they were also religious scholars and priests. They would track the stars. They would track celestial mechanics and celestial movement. And from that, they would gain an understanding of how things work. I'm not a particle physicist, but I understand that the way particles become unstable and change from one state to another, they transmigrate or transform. The way the solid becomes a liquid or a gas. Instability causes things to move, to escape. People in culture and societies and communities operate like particles. The very people that control the planet with chaos understand that, and they always say, from chaos comes order. They understand that they can manipulate people like you would manipulate particles in an experiment. And this is why there is so many experiments coming forth. In my video, The Mandela Effect, one of the things that I forgot to add to that video is the fact that the veil of deception has been removed. This is why other realities and memories are coming through. This is why we thought something was one way, but we're finding that it potentially might have been another way. We've seen things from a different perspective. That programming itself is breaking down. As a scientist, as an observer, as somebody in this reality and in this time, with a very specific mission to feed back and observe how humanity went wrong, I understand that the existence of God and seeing the very projection of creation is very obvious for me. There is no mystery to God. It's all here. Heaven is here, hell is here. It's all here. The only thing that I will say in closing is that there's deception, there's disinformation, there's truth and there's honesty. And everybody is on their own path. But if one reads between the lines, you'll gain an understanding of what's really happening in this game, and it simply is a game. It's like the fluctuations of an echo. It's like the final light passing through the filter. This doesn't even exist. This is simply consciousness transcending from one form to another. And it's like a dream. The other reality in existence, when we awaken out of this dream, is more real than this one.